this is Sabrina here. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to kind of do a similar video to what I've done in my latest video, which I discuss, in which I do my skincare routine while discussing my son's treatment for leukemia. And I just wanted to touch base with you regarding some of the bumps in the road, and this time they don't involve my son, involve some family drama that occurred during the first phase of the treatment, during the induction period, which is the first 30 days of the hospital. For today's video, we're going to do like a makeup tutorial. I want to try some makeup, and then yeah, because I'm not going anywhere. It's nighttime, and I'm a mess, but I want to try some makeup together because I've been wearing makeup in a very long time. So let's see if I can speak while I'm concentrating on my makeup and see how that comes out. But I'll start with my face and then I'll do my eyes and everything else. Okay, so I have to say it was a shock for everybody, of course. It was a nerve wrack, but I was kind of immune to everything else. Like, I was focusing on my son so much that, that I was not paying attention really, you know what I mean? And my husband also was very much under control. My husband at the time was actually taking some medication that unfortunately stopped right after. But at that time, the medication he was taking was kind of keeping him under control, I would say. So he kind of reacted very well. He was very supportive and everything. He didn't have any outbursts or anything, so I kind of applaud the medication for it, because it usually kind of freaks out. Now, my husband's parents were there with us. They were coming to visit us when we found out the news, and then my mother was here, from Italy. So kind of it came all together. Everyone came back on together without even knowing they were coming to this mess, to this horrific thing. And I've always had a beautiful relationship with my in-laws. I love them very much, and they've always supported me. They treat me very fairly, like I was their daughter, especially my mother-in-law. My father-in-law is very cold, he doesn't really show much of emotions. I'm using the La Mer skin tint with SPF. I've never used this, so I want to try it. So anyway, so I've always had a good relationship. So I knew that I was going to be supported in any way possible because they're really good people. But, they were kind of in a shock too. They were not sure how that came from. They're scientists, by the way, so they kind of have some knowledge, not of the disease, but they kind of have knowledge of the process, the research process. Basically, what happened is that my husband was a little bit, he was harsh on them a little bit because they were kind of nervous. Everything kind of happened when my son had to go in for surgery. And before surgery, they had to figure out whether or not I wanted to enroll my son into a clinical trial for research purposes. And initially, my mother-in-law said, no, don't enroll him because they kind of abuse the child and they can take as many samples they want. She comes from a country when in which the government is not really trustworthy. And so I was kind of, I was focused on not letting it happen just because of what she said. But then one of the doctors came and said that it could have been useful to him because during that research process, they could find out, they could find out a cure for him in case the treatment doesn't work. And no one knew at the time what type of leukemia he had. Like, they knew very little. That's why they needed the biopsy. So it could have been the one that's not curable that did require clinical trials, right? In order to be eligible, you have to be enrolled. So you don't know the future, so you have to. So she was adamant though. She was like, Sabrina, don't let your son be abused. This is for others. This is for research. They kind of take advantage and take the sample for their own purposes. It's not going to help at all because this research is kind of like, it's never going to bring any treatment for him. It possibly is going to help the future generation, but not him at all. So that's what she was saying. And she might be right in a sense, but the doctor said it could be useful though. Especially if, like I say, he doesn't respond well to treatment, he will be eligible for, for other treatment plans. They're still experimental and when there's no other choice. Of course, it's not the recommended, but there's no other choice. So anyway, so I was very confused. Everyone was like, she was screaming at us, saying that we shouldn't because she's noticed that I was kind of giving in. And my husband was giving in. And my cousin looked at me in the eye and said, you have to do what's best for your son. He's your son. And, if there is a possibility that this might help him, do it. So I signed him up for it. And that was the end of our relationship. That was the end. Oh my God. Dear God, that was the end. She was so upset over that. So upset. It was incredible. And she wouldn't talk to me. I was crying. She wouldn't talk to me. The moment in which my son went into treatment for the puncture, for the biopsy, I was crying hysterically. She wouldn't even look at me in the eye. So she was very mad. She was livid at us. She was livid at the doctors because they kind of convinced me, right? But I felt that because of the eagerness and the passion that they were trying to convince me with, I felt that this must be important. So, anyway, so that was it for the moment. Then I come to find out that my mother had a conversation with her and apparently they were leaving. We were kind of like already planning to do some work in the house, to clean the house. I mean, we were kind of planning to move the little boxes in the garage and do a small space for the cats because I didn't want their little boxes in the house. So they were supposed to help us with the contractor and everything. And apparently we found out they were leaving. And my mother said that she had a big conversation with them and they were extremely mad. They were extremely mad at the doctor. They didn't trust the doctor that pushed me to sign that paper for the clinical trials. So yeah, she was very mad. And she started saying things that were very hurtful. In particular, she was saying, that we are negligent. It was our fault that my son, was diagnosed this late, which he wasn't late. There's no timeline from leukemia, honestly. But anyway, I mean, of course, it is lethal, so you can't really wait too long. But, it wasn't late. But, yeah, so she was accusing us of many things. And yeah, she was accusing of being negligent. The fact that my son has a speech delay, so he was accusing every boy in my family had a speech delay. So I kind of not surprised. Anyway, so yeah, she was very upset, and she was saying things like that we had caused them, that it was my fault, you know, that kind of stuff. And my mother was saying, don't you feel sorry for your son? Don't you feel sorry? It's their first child, their 2-year-old. And she said, no, she doesn't. She's not. So, yeah, that was fun. Then, that's kind of embarrassing, but basically Valentin had a conversation with his dad, and he basically, they were fighting, and he basically started, the father was drunk, and he was starting to accuse me of things. He was starting to say things about me, that I'm dirty, that I don't do anything around the house, when in reality, I do everything around the house, but they don't know that. Anyway, I mean, I don't do everything, but I do most of it, and then my husband does the heavy stuff, like the garbages, the cleaning in the garden, and all of that. But anyway, so I take care of the baby, and I spend the most time with the baby. And unfortunately, I'm not very good at multitasking, and my son doesn't sleep with me, so it's extremely difficult for me. But yeah, unfortunately, I've been accused by them of many things, and I got very upset. I'm sorry, guys. When it comes to my brows, I have to be very careful. Anyway, I'm gonna use the Tati Beauty palette. By the way, I haven't used it in a long time. So yeah, so that's how it started. We're negligent, we caused it, all these comments are kind of too much to bear. I was already upset because I thought that I did something. There's something that I was taking, like a medication, during my pregnancy for my thyroid. The name is levotraxine or something like that. And honest to God, I think that might have caused it. Like, part of me thinks that medication might be involved. I don't know why. I feel it. I know that's not science, but there's something called instinct, and sometimes it's a good one. Because I didn't feel well about the medication. I was very much against it. I didn't have such a big problem with my thyroid. It was kind of an overkill. I never agreed to it. So, I don't know. I just didn't feel it was necessary. But it happened. I took it, and this happened. It definitely, it's something that he had from that time. The doctor said that the genetic mutation that he had was something that happens at birth during development, but it's not genetic, it's just something that goes wrong. And then his body didn't react well to that. So, yeah, so anyway. So unfortunately that happened, and after that I got into a fight with his sister because his sister was defending them, and she said horrible things about me, saying that I should just cut it out. I did tell them not to come unless they did apologize after they left, and they took it really badly. They felt that I was preventing them from seeing their grandson. So yeah, maybe I should have not done that at that point, but they did come. I did let them come, but I was not really talking to them too much. And then after they stayed for 3 days, once he was at the hospital, they never came back. So they haven't come back since August. You know, so it's been a long time. Yeah, so I do miss his mom. I did love my mother-in-law. I love her still. And I'm very upset about this. I can't get over the fact of the things she said. I just cannot. I cannot get over it. You know, she hurt me so much by these words. And, you know, she continued to say stuff against me to her son. And that's what pissed me off. Such a beautiful power. I'm so upset that it hasn't been discontinued. And I haven't used it as much. So yeah. So it's very upsetting to me. Because I love her. I love her, and very, very upsetting. I really hope the relationship is going to go back to the way it was, but it's going to be extremely difficult. Oh, God. This was so unnecessary. Just that I put so much weight to words. My husband doesn't. My husband kind of lets it go, and, you know, he moves on. Unfortunately, I don't move on. I don't move on because words hold meaning and power, and they do hurt. I really like this lip pencil. If you're interested in knowing any of the products that I'm using, let me know. If I'm not mentioning the video, just drop a comment down below and I'll tell you, because, you know, I don't know if I have time to write it down in the box, in the description box, so. It's a pretty color. Anyway, guys, so yeah, so that's the story. We're still kind of battling. Like, we don't talk to each other, at least me. I'm not talking to them. I'm not talking to my husband's sister and his parents, because, again, they haven't apologized. They think they can just move on. Actually, his mother at one point did state and ask whether or not the infant, that's how she called it, could have been at risk to my son's health upon birth, since that newborns can get sick during the vaccination process to build their immune system. And first of all, I don't vaccinate my children. I didn't vaccinate my son, and I wouldn't vaccinate her, the sibling, up until 4 months. So 4 months after, that's when I start the vaccination process. The reason is because there are studies from Pfizer out there that specifically state that the brain membrane that protects the brain from toxins is fully 100% formed at 4 months, 6 months, something like that. But unfortunately, beforehand, it's not as strong, so toxins can still get in. So because of these studies, I prefer to wait 4 months. I'm not going anywhere with my newborn, and I wouldn't have anybody in the house that I don't know that I knew that they weren't sick, that I wouldn't have many people towards in the house. So I'm pretty confident my newborn will be okay for 4 months without vaccination. So my son was okay, and she will be okay. So yeah, so that's why I felt that conversation was useless, because like I said, she wouldn't have vaccinations up until 4 months, and at that point my son will have his own immune system. He will be strong, he will be maintenance, so it will be a different phase, a much easier phase, in which he does have a degree of immune system and he can be in public. So I felt it was unnecessary, that request. And then she started saying, to kind of thinking out of that logic, if my son should be transferred elsewhere where she resides, and and she will take care of it, basically, and take my son from me. And my mother started laughing, saying, over my daughter's dead body. And she's right. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous that I will let her take my son away, all the way to Massachusetts, where she resides. 5 hours away. That's nuts. I guess she doesn't understand. She's a mother, she should know this. And when the thing is, when she found out that I was pregnant, she was not happy at all. And she almost said, once the baby's born, maybe you can take blood for a few months so that you can rest with your newborn. I said, absolutely not. I want my son to experience his sister, and no, I can make it. I wouldn't be the first one that's dealing with 2 children. And then I have my husband and support, and I can count on him, and I count on my mother. My mother will be here for a little bit. I'll make it. I'll be fine, And yeah, so that's what I'm saying. We're not on the same page, and that kind of breaks my heart. But anyway, hopefully things will rectify over time. But I will never forgive them for what they did during this time, being so distant from us, this time of need, in which they kind of wait for us to ask for help, and we haven't asked for help, because I know that's what they're looking for, and we're not doing that. If they want to see my son, they come, and that's it. The door is open. But anyway, guys, that's kind of the finished look. It's really nice. Unfortunately, I'm not going anywhere, so I just wanted to kind of do it to feel a little bit, happier, and it's anti-stress for me. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.